that the weather now is different from the past few years? The weather now can be suddenly hot and rainy, and there are also hurricanes and flash flood happening in Malaysia. And in other parts of the world, people are experiencing heat wave, storm with more rainfalls, and hurricanes with a greater level of intensity. All these symptoms are due to the current rise in global temperature. According to the National Center for Environment Information (NCEI) reports, the global temperature is getting higher and higher as every year in a rapid pace. It is well known that the main reason for the global warming is the greenhouse gases emission, and also known as the carbon dioxide (CO2). So, in order to reduce the global warming, we have to limit our use of carbon. In 1973, David Gordon Wilson, a professor of engineering, he has first suggested the idea of carbon tax. And the idea of carbon tax has first implemented by Finland in 1990. And now, more than 27 countries has putting a carbon tax in place. A carbon tax is just that, a tax on the usage of carbon, and many countries agree that taxes is the best way to cut down the use of greenhouse gas emission in a short period and fight the climate change. But putting a carbon tax in place suddenly will always hurt a country economy. Good morning to Madam Hamida and everyone else in the audience. Today I'm going to share the economic impact of implementing a carbon tax. A carbon tax, of course, will affect the entire economy. So I'm going to focusing on the three key factors or groups, which first is the business sector that use the natural resources as input, and the second is the low income group B40, and the third one is the government sector. When the policy comes down, business sector will always be the one who affected the first. Therefore, business sector must affected when the carbon tax policy implemented. The impact of carbon tax policy will feel differently across the industry, and particularly in the electricity, power, and transportation sector. Initially, the purpose of carbon tax is to raise the cost of carbon use and motivate the company to switch to the clean energy resources in order to reduce the green gas emission. For example, the hydro, wind, and solar energy. However, for those industries that has used the natural resources such as fuel and gas as their main input to do a product or services, they will be hit hard. This is because the carbon tax rate had significantly increased a large percentage of their production costs, as the production process require a large amount of the use of carbon, so the production cost will significantly increase and affected the company earning profit. In addition, there are also things that keep company from switching to a clean energy. For example, a company without renewable energy requires a lot of money and infrastructure. This is a big challenge for all business, especially for the SME, small business company. They might not able to afford it. Not only the business sector will be affected by the carbon tax, but people will also be affected. The carbon tax will have different impacts based on the income and expenses of each of the different households. And for sure that the low income group B40 are the group most affected by the implementation of carbon tax. This is because carbon in daily life has already accounted the most of the expenses for low income group. For example, the electricity and transportation expenses. All these are the unavoidable expenses. Therefore, the implementation of carbon tax will reduce the consumption ability of low-income groups. In addition, the implementation of carbon tax will definitely bring the inflation to a country economy as the price of everything will increase. Then the low-income group will face a serious financial hardship in terms of food, transportation, and all basic necessities. This is likely to threaten their well-being and make the poor even poorer. And this is also possible to say that they might have not enough financial resources to survive. However, the middle and upper income group didn't affect much from the implementation of carbon tax. This is because their daily expenses is just a small part of their income. For example, they didn't decide how much to fill the gasoline based on the up and down price of the gasoline. And next, the low-income household do not have the ability to switch to the low carbon use product. Even though that the electric car has already appeared in the market to replace the fuel car, but the new electric car, the price of new electric car is 2 to 3 times expensive than the regular car. And this is the reason why the low-income household can't switch to green energy, but the middle and upper income group can. Even though the low carbon use product can help them to save money in the long term, but since they have no ability to buy a product in a huge capital, therefore they can't afford to change to the low carbon product. We have talking about many negative impact of carbon tax, but there are also the positive impact of carbon tax, which implementation of carbon tax will bring government sector a significant raise in revenue. If the government can use the additional revenue wisely, it can help to boost country economic growth. For example, the government can use the tax money it gets back to the technology that can cut down the use of greenhouse gas emission GHG and bring a new clean and green technology. This is because the carbon use can really be cut down on when the renewable energy is mature and becoming widely used in the world. Secondly, the revenue from a tax can use as a subsidy for the needy to balance out the disparity in economy. In conclusion, due to the worsening climate change, a carbon tax indeed an effective policy tool that can help our nation not only address the critical challenge for our future, but also helps on our long-term fiscal load. Nonetheless, policy is always a tool to mitigate the problem. The implementation of carbon tax for sure will bring both negative and positive effect to the economy as a whole. Therefore, before implementing the carbon tax, the government should give more consideration on different groups of people in order to avoid imposing the burden on any one of group. Thank you everyone, that's all from me. Thank you.